Hello, my name is Rebecca Cho, and I'm an instructor at PSU Edu Center, and I'll be teaching the SAT Critical Reading section. So what I'd like to do today is to introduce you to the critical reading section overall, and to also give you some tips, and also to go over some practice questions. So the critical reading section on the SAT, you'll encounter 3 sections, and they range from 20 to 25 minutes each. And you'll encounter the sentence completion questions, and you'll also have the critical reading section, the critical reading passages. In the sentence completions, what exactly is it that the test takers are looking for? They're looking for mastery of your knowledge of meaning of words, which in other words is a vocabulary. They're also looking at sentence structure and your ability to logically deduce from the organization and the sentence structure. And you will have single and double blanks omitted, and it is your job to find the word that best fits into the blanks. And in terms of organization, the sentence completions are organized in terms of level of difficulty. So the questions get progressively harder. After you finish the sentence completions, you'll have the critical reading section. And in the critical reading passages, you'll have reading passages from a variety of disciplines, ranging from humanities to natural sciences to literature to social sciences. And you'll encounter long passages as well as short passages. And you'll also have to compare passages, and these will be shorter. Unlike the sentence completions, the critical reading section will be ordered chronologically rather than in terms of difficulty. So what are some strategies for the sentence completions? First, it's very important for you to bear in mind that the sentence structure can speak as much as words do. What that means for you is that you need to pay attention to colons, semicolons, because everything on the test has been thought of, it's very deliberately done by the test takers. You should also pay attention to conjunctions, words such as and, but, and so on. We'll go over a few questions for what I meant exactly when we review the actual practice questions. Then, it is important for you to have a sense of what the word you're looking for is before you go and look at the answer choices. So, what you should do is cover up the answer choices, read the sentence, and come up with a word that you think best fits the sentence, and then you should proceed to look at the answer choices. Next, this is important especially if you do not have a good sense of what the word means. You should try to develop in your mind a sense of whether the answer choice conveys a positive or negative tone. This will be especially helpful, as I mentioned before, if you encounter a word which the meaning of which you're not sure, Next, also bear in mind that, as I mentioned before, the questions are ordered in terms of difficulty, from easy to progressively harder. So let's put the strategies into practice. Let's take a look at a question in which there's one omitted blank. So let me read the question with you. Many private universities depend heavily on blank, the wealthy individuals who support them with gifts and bequests. Now, it's very important for you to hone in on the key words rather than trying to understand the entire sentence. So what that means is some words weigh much more than others. So words such as wealthy individuals is not as important as the word support, because support here is a key word. And so we have here individuals who are supporting the private universities with gifts and bequests. So we know this is a positive sense. But then you may look at this and you say, I don't know what the word bequests mean. But that's okay, because structurally, the word and connects gifts with the word bequests, and you know that structurally this is a synonym. So even if you don't know what the word bequests mean, you can just focus on the word gifts. So let's see, these individuals give them gifts and they support them. So we have in our mind a word such as a word we need to keep it simple the better. So let's have in our mind the word such as supporter. So let's look at the answer choices to find a word that best captures the sense of supporter. A, instructors. This doesn't capture that sense, so we rule it out, as well as B and C. D also does not capture the sense of supporter. So we look at the last answer choice, E, benefactors. And let's say you don't know what this word means. But this is not too difficult of a word. This is number 1 on the sentence completion. So I would think that you should be able to get this one correct, but let's say you do not. So here are some root words. And root words are important because they give you, even if you don't know what the word means, they'll give you a clue into the tone of the word or a sense of whether this is a positive or negative word. And bene comes from the Latin word good. And so you have words such as benediction, which means blessing, and benefit, for example, and as well as benefactor. The opposite of the word bene is the word mal, which in the opposite sense conveys a negative word such as harm or evil. And so you have words such as malediction, which is an antonym to the word benediction, and also malefactor, which is sort of an antonym to the word benefactor. And you'd also have words such as malevolent as well. So now that we've kind of thought through this, let's try plugging in benefactor into the sentence and see if it fits the word, fits the sentence. Many private universities depend heavily on benefactors, the wealthy individuals who support them with gifts and bequests. And yes, this fits perfectly, so we move on. Next, I'll take you through the reading passage, and I've chosen a long passage. And as you can see, it's quite long. But let me give you some strategies so that you will not panic when you see such a long passage. So the first thing you should think of when you attack the questions on the long passage, or for that matter, all reading passages, is you should think about the question type. Some questions, usually the first question, will ask you a main idea question. Some questions will ask you vocab and context, and some will ask you to refer back to a specific line. Next, you should pay attention to the tone. And the tone is the attitude in which the author or the narrator is trying to convey to the audience. The tone is very similar to, for example, intonation when a friend speaks to you. It should convey the attitude. Is he or she serious? Is he or she playful? Is he or she angry? And also you should pay attention to the structure. And that, I think, is something we'll focus on today. But before we do that, let's take a closer look at this passage. So in the beginning, the first paragraph, we're given a contrast. I dig through ancient trash, I told the elegantly groomed young woman. And we have a contrast between the word ancient trash and the elegantly groomed lady. And so this sets the tone or the stage for this entire text. And you'll continually see these type of juxtapositions, which is important in setting the tone. So I will take you through the structure of this passage. In the first section, the archaeologist is speaking with the reporter, the elegant lady, and she's describing her encounter with the reporter. But this is more aptly a way in which the narrator is contrasting what the reporter thinks about the field of archaeology versus what the narrator has experienced, her personal experience in the field. And so we can divide this largely up into the first part is the encounter with the reporter, and the next part is she's describing herself. Who is this lady? She is a lecturer at UC Berkeley, and she's an archaeologist. Next part, she describes her relationship with other archaeologists, or the way in which other archaeologists perceive her field or perceive herself. What is that perception? That perception is largely negative. So the other archaeologists see the narrator as not a real academic, a popularist in a way. And so she's not the most academic person. So they frown on her a little bit. In the next section, in the last part, and I think this is the most important part, is she's describing herself. And she fills this part with self-descriptions. And she's talking about how archaeology is not so much an academic endeavor for her, but a thing in which she has to work with her hands, in which her job is written all over her hands. Her nails are short and clipped, like some claws of some digging animal. So in sum, this passage can largely be divided into Number one, how do those outside her profession view archaeologists? And this view, in view of the narrator, is largely false. The second part describes how those within her profession view the narrator, how fellow archaeologists view the narrator. And this is largely negative. They don't really see her as a real academic. The next part, and the important part, is how she, the narrator, describes herself, her own job. And we get the sense that she's content with her profession despite the challenges. And also, I think that after you read this passage, it's important for you to have caught the number of I's in this passage, which definitely hints upon what the intention of the author is. The narrator here is describing a subjective and a deeply personal account. And so this does not deal with, she's not speaking about archaeologists in general. She's not speaking about journalists. She's speaking about her own personal experience in archaeology. So let's take a look at one question. The passage as a whole serves primarily two, and as I mentioned before, usually the main idea questions appear at the beginning. And for you to answer this question, it's important for you to capture the tone of the narrator. So let's take a look at the answer choices. A, satirize the activities of professional archaeologists. As I mentioned before, she's not satirizing. She does use a lot of words in which she uses words such as trash to describe her profession, but she means it in the sense that the reporter does not fully understand her profession, and so she's describing what her job must appear like to the reporter. And she's also not speaking on behalf of all professional archaeologists. She's speaking on behalf of herself. B, portray the trials and tribulations of professional journalists. Again, she's not speaking she's not speaking about journalists. She's speaking about her own field and her own experience as an archaeologist. C, reveal the personality of a character through her own self-descriptions. And yes, this is absolutely correct. She uses the word I multiple times, and she's describing a very deeply subjective experience. D, represent the ambiguities of truth through unreliable first-person narrative. She's not an unreliable narrator. She is, on the other hand, someone who is deeply aware of her own faults or the way in which she may appear to others. And she's describing it, she's trying to sound facetious. She's trying to be funny when she does so. But she's not an unreliable narrator, and she's also not trying to represent the ambiguities of truth. E, display the inner workings of a mind of a brilliant academic. As I mentioned before, she does not portray herself as a brilliant academic, nor do those around her see her as such. Rather, she sees her as a very hands-on person, a person who goes hands-on, doesn't write so much for academic journals, but tries to do what she's passionate for, and that's the sense in which that's the tone of this passage. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you come to PSU Edu Center for the SAT Critical Reading section. Thank you.